March 15th, 1892. Dear Martha, I wish you could have been with me for the performance of The Pirates of the Penzance. The Grand Opry House was a sight. It had carved balconies, artistic silhouettes painted on the ceiling, gold-covered drama and comedy masks, velvet curtains, and plush upholstered seats. It looked like something out of a picture postcard. I now know that the reason they call it the Grand Ole Opry House is because it is very grand indeed. Miss Millman told us that the operetta would be funny. She was not kidding. We spent the afternoon laughing. I never knew what I'd been missing. The story is about a man, Frederick, who has grown up as an apprentice to a group of pirates. The pirates like to think they are fierce, but they are really a bunch of marshmallows. Frederick has to work for the pirates until he turns 21 years of age, which he has. He tries to leave their company, but at the last minute, just before he is to marry the beautiful Mabel, the pirates inform him that he was born on a leap year, February 29, and that he has only had 5 birthdays. That means that in their eyes, he's only 5 years old, not 21. But in the end, it all turns out well and Frederick gets to marry Mabel. We laughed at so many things during the performance, my sides hurt. The pirates acted crazy, swung out over the audience on ropes. One pirate winked at me and dropped a beautiful pink rose in my lap. He was very handsome. I winked back and Mama pinched me. She whispered, "Don't be fresh." Oh, Mama just doesn't understand me sometimes. I was just getting into the spirit of the play. The women's costumes were made of the finest silks and satins in bright yellow, red, blue, coral, turquoise, and purple. They were exquisite and stylish. During the intermission, I heard Miss Millman and Mama discussing the styles and fabrics. I never knew Mama was interested in those things. Great day in the morning. Another feature that was incredible was the orchestra. There were at least 25 musicians, all dressed in fine black evening clothes. I've heard Pat play the fiddle before, but this was nothing like that. During the second intermission, Miss Millman took me forward to look in the orchestra pit. She pointed out the cello, viola, oboe, clarinet, trumpet, French horn, flute, piccolo, and the kettle drums. There were others, but I forgot what they all were. I've never seen so many instruments in one place. The man, who is the piano player, came over to speak to Miss Millman. He said, "I see you used your tickets. I'm glad to see you here." Miss Millman introduced me as her student. The piano player said, "Well, Theodosia, what do you think of our production of The Pirates of Penzance?" I said, "I think it's spectacular." He said, "Then please come backstage after the performance and meet the cast." Mama was impressed that we were allowed to go backstage when the musical was over. I met the pirate who gave me the pink rose, the pirate who had winked at me. Mama was standing beside me. He said, "I'm glad you brought your sister with you to meet the cast." Mama blushed. I bet she secretly likes handsome pirates too. I want to be a singer when I grow up and star in a Gilbert and Sullivan operetta. I will never forget this day as long as I live. The only thing that would have made it better is if you had been here too. Love, Teddy. March 16th, 1892. Dear Martha, so many good things have happened to me in the last 3 days I can hardly take it all in. When Mama came back from town this morning, she had a package for me. Inside were 3 pencils, a pencil sharpener, an eraser, 2 tablets of paper, a box of envelopes, and 4 candles. I almost fell over. 3 pencils all at once? What a windfall. She said it's an early birthday present. You've always got your nose in a letter, writing with nubs of pencils and trying to see by stubby little candles. She put her hand under my chin and said, "I'm proud that you are a writer. Keep it up. Great buckets of butter beans. Mama's proud of me." Yesterday, Mama made a Johnny cake for our lunch. She made an extra one, and she asked me to take it to Miss Millman. It was her way of saying thank you for sharing her tickets. Then, today, Miss Millman walked along with the train and caught up with our wagon. She gathered her skirts, climbed right up on the seat with Mama. Mama smiled when she saw Miss Millman had come to visit. "I'm having to walk extra today because that Johnny cake you made me was so good, I ate every bite of it. Thank you kindly," Miss Millman said. I was feeding Dylan right behind them in the wagon so I could hear their talk. I wanted to be out there so bad, but I knew I'd better stay right where I was. Mama left all her friends behind in Mississippi. It was nice that Miss Melman had come to call. Mama said, "We had the best time at the Opera House. I thank you again for inviting us." Miss Melman said, "I've been thinking. Mrs. Bodain, I know you love music. Theodosia tells me you've always wanted to learn how to play piano." Tarnation! I didn't mean for her to go and tell Mama what I said. But Mama said, "I've considered it, yes. But I never had a piano." Miss Melman said, "Well, I've come to suggest a trade. I hate to admit it, Mrs. Bodain, but I have no cooking experience to speak of. Somehow, I've gotten by not cooking all my life. I lived at home, where we had a cook, and then I attended college, where we took our meals in a cafeteria. I've lived in boarding houses where the food was provided. But now that I'm going to live on my own in Florida," Mama said, "you'll need to know how to cook." Miss Melman said, "It's a bit embarrassing, I'm afraid. Would you teach me, Mrs. Bodain? Theodosia tells me you're a terrific cook. I can tell from the Johnny cake you sent over that she's right." Mama said, "That girl runs her mouth too much. But yes, I'll teach you." Miss Melman sounded excited. "Then I'll teach you to play the piano." Mama must have looked shocked because Miss Melman said, "Yes, I will. You can learn on my piano in the last wagon. By the time we reach your new home in Florida, you'll be able to play most hymns and a few solo pieces." Mama said, "Do you think so, Miss Melman?" Miss Melman said, "I certainly do, and please call me Cassie." Mama said, "It would give me something to look forward to. I get so tired of sitting up here on this seat all day, bouncing around, following the wagon in front. Maybe Teddy, Theodosia, would watch Dylan for me while we have lessons." "Martha, I couldn't help myself," I shouted. "I will." Mama called, "Are you back there listening to our talk?" She wasn't mad. "We got a trade," she told Miss Melman. "And please call me Grace. I'm so happy when a good thing happens for Mama. Love, Teddy." March 17th, 1892. Dear Martha, we have been on the road for 25 days. We left on February 22nd. That means we've traveled over 200 miles. I've never been so far from home before. Pep says our journey will be 1,000 miles. Our next big stop is Dothan, where we will buy most of our supplies. Alabama is like one big pine forest. Everywhere you look are the tallest trees, towering overhead like giants. We have passed a lot of farms. People come out to wave us on. I'm sure we make a curious sight. A train of big covered wagons and people and animals walking along beside it. I feel like we are on a great adventure. Folks must know we are homesteading because sometimes they call out, "Where you head?" Captain Walsh calls, "Florida." Then they yell, "Good luck," or "Don't let the gators get you." One man shouted, "There's rich land down that a ways." I'm sure Pap was glad to hear that. We spotted a cardinal this morning. Mama said, "A red bird." "Good morning, Mr. Redbird." She pointed to a brown bird who fluttered and landed on a bush near the cardinal. "That's his mate, see? She's brown, but she sings just as sweetly." I hope we have cardinals in Florida, or Mama's going to be very disappointed. Today, we had school again. We had a spelling bee. We did really well. So as a reward, Miss Melman started reading Tom Sawyer. We flipped a coin to see whether we would read Alice in Wonderland or Tom Sawyer first. Well, the coin was heads. So we started with Tom Sawyer. I was secretly glad, even though Miss Melman chose that book as the boys' book. She read aloud to us for almost an hour. I can already tell that it's going to be the best book ever. She read the part about Tom having to whitewash Aunt Polly's fence as punishment for skipping school. He tricked the rest of his friends into whitewashing the fence for him. He acted like whitewashing was the best fun a kid could have. When his friends came by to watch him work, he went on and on about how much fun he was having. They actually paid him to let them take turns whitewashing his aunt's fence. When the fence was whitewashed in record time, Tom had a pocket full of money. He was so clever. We moaned when Miss Melman stopped reading and said, "That's all for today." Guess what? Travis Lark is teaching me how to use a slingshot. I've never owned one before, but Travis had an extra strip of rubber, and he cut a sling for me. I still think he feels bad for taking my marbles. This afternoon, we stopped to let the animals drink at a wide stream. Travis told me to search for small, smooth stones to use as ammunition. I filled my pockets with them. He cut a thin branch fork, shaped like the letter Y, from a hickory tree growing near the stream. He wound the strip of rubber around each of the forks of the Y. Man, can that thing shoot! Martha, hickory wood doesn't bend much, so it makes perfect slingshot. I put a small stone in the center of the rubber sling, pulled it back, took aim, let her fly. I can shoot far. We practiced the rest of the afternoon, shooting at targets along the way. I'm going to practice every day. I still don't have any aim. Love, Teddy. March 18th, 1892. Dear Martha, we had fresh fish for breakfast this morning. I've never tasted anything so good. Last evening, we camped by a river. Pap and I went fishing. He cut 2 bamboo poles and strung them with line while I caught crickets. The fish were biting. As fast as I could put bait on my hook, there was a bluegill on the line. Pap said, Teddy, if you know how to fish with next to nothing, you'll never go hungry. See how I cut these poles? Bamboo grows all over. You just have to look for it growing near water. I keep a length of fishing line in my pocket, but you can use a string or thread or whatever you have handy. I've caught fish on my boot strings before. I said, it wasn't hard to catch crickets. I just swooped my hand through the tall grass and looked for whatever tried to hop away. Pap said most fish like to bite when the sun is just coming up or going down. They get hungry, just like we do, and a cricket looks mighty good. You can use anything for bait, worms, minnows, crickets. I said, did you fish when you were a boy? Pap said, all the time, me and my dog, Darby. He went everywhere I went. I thought about that. I'd like to get a dog. Pap said, that's a fine idea. I thought it was a fine idea too. Why hadn't I thought of it before? I said, where would I get a dog? We're on the move all the time. Pap said, at the right time, a dog will find you. We caught 13 bluegill. Pap strung them together by running the line through their gills. He slipped the fish back down in the river to keep them alive and tied the line to a big rock. I used a chalky rock to write Bodain on the big rock, so folks from the train would know they were our fish if they came to the same spot. Pap went back early this morning to clean the fish with his knife. Always bury the heads and guts, he said. Never leave a mess behind. Now this morning, I fried the fish over our campfire. Mama was feeding Dylan, but she told me what to do. I dipped the fish in cornmeal and fried them in our big black skillet in lard. When they were brown on one side, I turned them over on the other side. I made a pot of grits, and that was our breakfast. Mama said I did as good as a job as any grown woman. One thing about being in a wagon train, you have to do everything, or as much as you can, while the train is rolling, or in the little time before we leave in the morning, or before the sun goes down when we stop to camp. In the morning, Mama puts our clothes to soak in buckets of river water and hangs them on the side of the wagon. Then in the afternoon, she scrubs them on a board, rinses them, hangs them on a line, Pap strings beside our wagon for the night. It's my job to red up the wagon each day. Once we get rolling, I shake out our feather bed and roll it up. I fold the blankets and Pap's quilts. Then I sweep the floor, set up Dylan's playpen. Mama and Pap made it before we left. It's almost as big as the center of the wagon. Dylan can play with his blocks and toys while we're on the move. The wagon can be dangerous for a baby because the back is open. He might tumble out. Sometimes Miss Emily invites Dylan over, and he and Lucy play together in her playpen. Dylan's getting so smart, he calls me Taddy. And he can name some of the animals in my picture book. But one thing upsets me. He always wants to play with Veronica. When he sees me take her out, he screams, Ronnie, Ronnie, and tries to reach her. She's too beautiful and delicate for a baby to play with. Love, Teddy. March 19th, 1892. Dear Martha, something terrible happened today. Haley Good, Minnie's little sister, had a terrible accident. Something I just warned about in my last letter. Astonishing. While the caravan was moving, she was sitting too near the back of the wagon and tumbled out to the ground. The fall broke her arm, and the wagon, behind the goods wagon, had to turn quickly to keep from running her over. Travis Lark rode to tell the pushers, and the whole train stopped. All the grown-ups came to look, even Captain Walsh. Mama didn't want me to go, but I said, Mama, I have to go. It's Haley. So she let me. Haley's arm was broken bad. This part will be hard to read. Martha, Mrs. Carter, our neighbor, and her husband had to set Haley's arm. It was terribly painful. Haley cried something awful. I wanted them to stop. They finally lined up her bones. That was a relief. Then Mrs. Carter wrapped her arm with a long, rolled-up bandage. While she wrapped it, Mr. Carter heated a little pot of wax over the campfire. He used a paintbrush to paint Haley's arm bandage all over with a thick coat of wax. While the wax was still soft, Mrs. Carter put a long, smooth wooden splint along Haley's arm. Then she wrapped it again with another long bandage, and Mr. Carter painted it again with the wet wax. Soon Haley's arm was as snug as a bug in a rug. Captain Walsh said, "You're a brave girl." Gave her a silver $1. She's the only kid I know with a silver $1. I hope she lets us look at it up close. I've never had a silver $1 of my own. Now, Haley has to wear a sling to keep her arm still. Mrs. Carter gave her a tincture to help with the pain. I hope I never break my arm, that's for sure. Pap rode up in the wagon with me this afternoon. Mama went to take her first piano lesson, and I had to watch Dylan. I can't watch a baby who squirms all the time and drive the team, so Pap drove, and I held Dylan on my lap. I like it when Pap is driving our wagon. He whistles a lot and tells stories. "Teddy," he said, "what do you think of our trip so far?" I said, "I don't know. It's fun." Pap said, "I see you writing all the time. What are you writing?" I told him about writing to you. He said, "When I was a boy, I don't think I wrote a single letter. I don't have anyone to write to." We didn't know our kinfolk. The only other Bodain I'd heard about was a cousin, Daniel Bodain, who lived near Macanopy, Florida. I would have liked to have known him. I like it when Pap tells me about our family. My father died when I was about your age. I had to grow up quick, be a man. Help my mama like my father had. I put new hinges on our cabin door. I learned to hunt and fish, put food on the table, plow the field, help Mama bring in all the crops. "How'd you learn to do all that?" I asked. "Just by doing. You can learn anything if you need to." I told him about my slingshot. "That's a handy skill to have. You any good?" I said, "Not yet, but I'm practicing. I want to get good at it. Maybe I can help Pat put food on the table. Love, Teddy." March 20th, 1892. Dear Martha, it rained all day today. It was miserable traveling in the rain. Mama put an oilcloth over us to keep us dry as we drove the team. Chester and Jingo were soaked. The road's full of puddles and mud, so we had to go slowly. Muddy road can mean danger for animals who are pulling a heavy load. Baby Dylan cried all day. Mama thinks he's teething. I spent a long time rocking him and singing all his favorites. He loves for me to sing, "The Little Green Frog Who Lives in the Bog." When I went to get one of his books down from the shelf, he saw Veronica. You can imagine what happened then. He cried, "Ronnie, Ronnie." I didn't want to, but I let him hold her while I rocked him. Then he finally went to sleep. While he was sleeping, I put Veronica back up on the shelf. I didn't want her to get wet and dirty on a day like this. I sat by Mama on the wagon seat. Am I selfish because I don't let Dylan play with Veronica? Mama said, "I think you're trying to take care of something that's precious to you. That's not being selfish. You're good to your brother." It made me feel a little better. I love Dylan to pieces, but a baby could ruin a doll. Today's Sunday, but we couldn't have preaching because it was too wet. Folks rode in the wagon instead of walking alongside. That made the train very slow because of the heavier load and because of the mud. At times, it seemed like we were hardly moving. Most of the time, folks get down and walk along. That makes load lighter for those of us who have mules instead of oxen. Mom and I were going out of our minds with boredom. We played games, naming all the birds we could think of, and then all the different kinds of trees we could think of. We told riddles. Then I got an idea. When Dylan was taking his nap, I got my copy of Little Women and read it aloud. Mama loved it. She said, "I read Little Women when I was a little girl, Teddy." Beth was always my favorite. She's the one who played the piano so beautifully. There we were, under an oilcloth in the rain, driving a team of mules headed for Florida. But as I read, we both felt like we were actually in the story. Have you read it, Martha? The story is about 4 sisters, Jo, Amy, Beth, and Meg. Her father's a chaplain during the war between the states. Jo's my favorite character because she loves to write so much, but sometimes she has a bad temper. And she's a tomboy and loves adventure, just like I do. Now, I'm reading 2 books at once. Tom Sawyer, which Miss Melman is reading aloud to us, and Little Women, which I am reading aloud to Mama. So today wasn't a total loss with all the rain. Mom and I have a book to share. Another good thing is that we caught rainwater in buckets. Pap and all the men filled their canteens. You never know when we might not have a stream or a river or a spring to camp near. Water is precious. We collect it wherever we can. Rainwater's like gold. I've still been thinking of getting a dog. A dog would be a good companion. But we're on the move almost every day, driving from one place to the next. How will a dog ever find me? Love, Teddy. March 22nd, 1892. Dear Martha, good news. The sun is shining. Jumping jubilation. Everything had to dry out. Our clothes, our canvas, even Pap's feet. Captain Walsh stopped the train yesterday because we weren't making progress in such a downpour anyway. The wagon wheels were caked with mud. It made it too hard on the mules to pull the wagons. Martha, Mama did something that was a wonder. Papa's feet were bothering him something awful. His boots were soaked through, and he'd been out in driving rain trying to help folks settle their wagons in the downpour. Mama helped him get his boots off, but it was a chore. The leather was tight. Pap's feet were swollen. Mama put some thick mud in the bottom of the wash tub and hauled it up in the wagon. She smoothed the mud flat and put a folded newspaper on top of the mud. Then she stacked small pieces of fat lighter wood we had stored in a box under the seat of the wagon and lit it afire. She fixed a place for Pap to sit so his feet were up over the wash tub. In no time, Pap's feet were dry and he was smiling. He said, "My feet are drier than 7 acres of parched corn. Can you believe Mama made such a good fire right up in the wagon? I wish I was smart like her." Today, she's drying Pap's boots, so he's wearing his old plowing boots. We're on the move again. Early this morning, every man, woman, and child helped scrape mud from the wagon wheels. We had to scrape it off and sling it to the side, so the next family wouldn't drive through it again once we got going. I haven't been able to write since Sunday. It was just too crazy with all this rain. We were crowded into the wagon day and night. We kept warm by huddling together. Since we had nothing else to do, we played checkers. Pap beat us every game. I lit one of my candle stubs and read Little Women. Mom and I had already knew the story, of course, but Pap had never heard it before. The lightning cracked something awful. Scared baby Dylan, and we took turns holding him and playing little games, keep him entertained. I felt sorry for most folks' mules and oxen. They'd stand out in the rain the entire time. But not just during Jingo, Gabriel, and Girlie. Pap strung a big oilcloth between our wagon and the carter's wagon in front of us. Propped it up with poles so our animals could be out of the rain. Pap slept in the wagon with us because it's far too wet for him to sleep under the wagon. Before he went to bed, Mama rubbed his feet with lard. I was supposed to be asleep, but when they thought I wasn't listening, I heard Pap say, "Grace, I love you more than the moon is round." Mama said, "Oh, go on." Pap said, "I do. Can't help it. Love you more than the stars are bright." Mama said, "Hush now, Teddy. We'll hear." Pap said, "So what if she hears? I love you, and I hope you love me too." Mama didn't say anything, so Pap said, "Well, do you?" She still didn't say anything, so Pap said again, "Well, do you?" I could hear Mama laughing real quiet. Then she whispered, "Well, what woman wouldn't love a man who keeps her milk cow out the rain?" Pap said, "Well, all right then. Great buckets of butter beans. Mama and Pap sound like sweethearts. Love, Teddy." March 23rd, 1892. Dear Martha, Tomorrow, we'll be in Dothan, Alabama. The last stop before Florida. We'll spend a few days in Dothan. So folks can buy supplies, trade in their mules, get haircuts, and so forth. I'm going to go straight to the post office to see if I have a letter from my best friend, Martha Lindell. Captain Walsh had a meeting with Pap and the other train pushers this morning. He said that we all should be on the lookout for rattlesnakes. Rattlesnakes can grow as thick as a man's arm, he said, and 6 feet long. They usually stay hidden under logs or piles of pine needles, but after a heavy rain, they like to sun themselves. I hope no one stumbles onto a rattlesnake. Pep said if you come across one, best thing to do is back away. I don't want to tangle with a rattlesnake. I've been practicing my slingshot. Minnie and Haley asked Travis to make them one, so now we each have our own slingshot. Travis points out targets along the way, and we practice hitting them. That is, Minnie and I practice. Haley can't use a broken arm for several more weeks, and you can't use slingshot one-handed. Yesterday, Travis said, "Teddy, you're getting pretty good with that thing. Have you shown your Pap?" I want to get really good before I show Pap. Minnie's just getting started. Sometimes she lets a stone fall out before she releases the sling. Sometimes I do that too. I got to thinking. I'm a strange kind of tomboy. I like to play dolls with Minnie and Haley, and I like to cook with Mama. On the other hand, I like driving the team, fishing, using my slingshot. Then again, I like to go to musicals, like the Pirates of Penzance. I asked Mama about it. She said that I was a sponge and not to worry about it. I said, "What do you mean by a sponge?" Mama said, "You soak up knowledge everywhere you turn, Teddy. You're a most inquisitive girl." Guess what? Miss Millman came over for a new cooking lesson today. The men had just shot a deer, so Pat brought home 2 pieces of venison, one for us and one for the Carters. Mama showed Miss Millman how to cut the meat into cubes, soak it in brine, and make a delicious stew. Mama said venison can be tough, so you have to soak it first to make it tender. She showed Miss Millman how to set up the tripod over the fire and hang the pot just right, so it would come to a boil. Mama said, you want to put your pot to hang just over the flames, but you don't want them licking up the side of the pot. She saw how Miss Millman hung the pot. "Casey, got to get it just right. Your stew will cook, but won't burn. I do believe you are catching on right quick-like." While the stew was bubbling along, Mama and Miss Millman cut up potatoes, onions, carrots, and apples to add to the stew. Miss Millman said, "Apples, Grace? I never would have thought to add apples." Mama said, "Just wait till you taste it. They add a hint of sweetness that is oh so good." All the Carters joined us for supper. Miss Carter brought cornbread and cucumber salad. Miss Emily brought fresh water from the spring and boiled raisin pudding. We had a feast. Everyone complimented Miss Millman and Mama on the stew. Mama's a good teacher. Love, Teddy.